Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for Adorama for having me here today. Oh, thanks. This has been an amazing opportunity for me because I have always been a fan of the talks that Adorama gave. I was fortunate enough to be a BTS filmmaker sometimes for events that Adorama held, and so being here on this side of the aisle, it's pretty awesome, and thank you so much everyone, Fernando, Seth, Sal, everyone, Susie, everyone who was involved in having me here. Now, the reason why I'm here is because I made a movie, a feature documentary using this camera and a couple of other cameras and a multitude of other cameras, but primarily this camera. The way I made it and how I was able to make it is, I guess, caught interest. It was interesting for me, and so I'm going to share with everyone my tools and how I got it to make it happen. So first of all, who I am. Been in the industry for over 14 years. Worked primarily in Italy first, and then moved to the US in 2014 and did a lot of work in the US, from very small productions to very big productions. And then in 2020, I established my own production company. We focus primarily on corporate videos, on the commercials, content creation for events and stuff like that. So that's pretty much my background. And when 2019 happened, I was doing a for-hire project. It was a 3-minute for-hire project for this not-for-profit called Winter Circle Project. Pretty much what they were doing is it's a project for schools where they, throughout the course of a school year, they build a race car. Pretty much they get the kit, the students build it, and then they sell it at the end of the year to raise money for the school. And it was supposed to be a 4-day commitment. Actually, Adorama Sal looked me up with that job, so thank you, Sal, for that. And I pretty much, what I did was, day 3 comes, it was like March of 2020, some people might remember that month, and I did the 3rd day of the 4th, and I looked at the executive producer of the not-for-profit, and I was like, we need to turn this into a more longer, complicated story. And so that's what we did, and it was the day before COVID happened. And so I said, you know what, it's not going to happen. It's probably not going to be another couple of years until we make it happen. And then cut to 3 weeks later, he calls me and says, we're going to try to keep doing it for 2020, and we're going to, if we have to, incorporate COVID in the story, which it is what's going to happen. And that's what happened in the movie. So I'm just going to play for you the trailer for the film, and then we can talk about it. So I just want to give you an idea of what the story is.
2 high schools, 50 students, building 2 cars.
Like real race cars.
I was raised around race cars, and when I found out my school was building one, then I was like, okay, yeah, I want to do that.
I'm hoping to break out of my shell a little bit. I just don't talk to people much. I'm very quiet.
I've done a lot of big things. This is definitely the biggest, and it's during this crazy time.
You're building a race car, that's pretty amazing stuff.
Just an overwhelming bunch of emotions right now because of what's about to happen.
The car is a very challenging thing to build. To do this in a year, you gotta have it the first day of school in September and run like the wind.
Do you think they're gonna shut down for the...
Commander closes. What would we do? What are we gonna do with our students? What are we gonna do with the car?
Starting on Monday, we have to be able to test 20% of our student body and faculty and staff in order to stay open. We don't have any protocol. We don't have the personnel to do it. We don't even have a pamphlet on what's going on with it.
You really haven't done much. If you're not doing your job, then please be quiet.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go before I say something.
There were times where we were low, there were times when we were tired. Kind of the groups colliding a little bit. It's a bunch of teenagers, like it's gonna happen.
Don't look at the camera.
Thanks, Reagan.
If you work hard, it pays off. It's just a matter of getting there.
How you carry yourself, how you treat other people, those are really your resumes. Respect is everything.
To be able to affect other people's lives is probably the biggest blessing I've ever had in my life.
It has to work. Motivational speeches have to work.
It's a machine.
You got this. I believe in you.
You just don't quit on people, man. You just get on them and you stay on them, right? It's about a car, but it's not about a car.
They start to get a better sense of who they are and what they want to become. Who are you? Well, who do you want to be?
Two-hour long. And what I'll be covering today is pretty much go over what my equipment was for this, how I set up my camera, some of the challenges that I had, and some of the solutions that I found.
And we'll just talk over each other, and all the footage will be useless.
All right, follow-up video. I don't know why. Challenges that I had, solutions that I found, some examples. I'll show you some other examples from the movie, and the lessons that I learned. So first of all is my equipment, right? So we have the FX6 over here, of course, but I started in 2019 with the for-hire project, right? So this started as a for-hire project, and so I started with my very own Sony a7R III, which is a good hybrid camera, as a, you know, the 8-bit 420 color sampling. It was a workhorse for me. I shot a lot of big stuff with that. So the first 3 days of the movie were shot with that camera. Then 2020 came, and I was able to, thanks to Adorama, try this A7S III, which I fell in love with, and I started using that for everything that was production-wise. And when the movie started, this one either just came out or didn't come out yet. So basically, I started with the A7S III because this one didn't exist as of yet. What I loved about the A7S III was the 10-bit 422 color sampling internally, the outstanding low-light performance, and the in-body stabilization. A lot of the stuff that you've seen over there on handheld, I've gotten pretty good with handheld stuff, but definitely, you know, having the stabilization really helped throughout the time. And when I moved from the A7S III to the FX6, one of the downside was not having that. So when I moved from the, you know, A7S III to the FX6, I was like, the first couple of times I took it out, I was like, man, this is really shaky. But, you know, you get used to it and you adjust your aim, and you basically, it's a heavier camera, even though it's extremely lightweight. What I love about the FX6, though, and what got me moved to that, is the fact that it's a true cinema camera. Of course, it has built-in ND filter, which is something that I truly, truly love. And the reason why I upgraded from the A7S III is because I really wanted to have a camera that gave me more than what I already was in love with, talking about the A7S III, but keeping everything that I had, because we're talking about I was already in the middle of the production of the movie, and so I wanted to be the transmission as smooth as I could. You know, you didn't want to get another new set of camera and you like have to relearn everything. I wanted to have a smooth transition, also because it was just me by myself, so I didn't really want to, you know, I couldn't really include people because of budgeting issues. So I wanted to have consistency, meaning that, you know, the look of the cameras was from the get-go similar. I didn't have to worry too much about the upgrade. Cameras that are easy to match. So when this became my A cam, when I was doing interviews, the A7S III became my B cam. And so what happened is I had a great angle, and the cameras were easy to match. I don't need to use adapters. So if I were to upgrade to the Canon, for example, I had to change the lenses and stuff. So I really kept my glass because I really love my glasses. Battery life, you know, filming observational documentaries, you go through batteries like crazy. So the A7S III, I had like 7 batteries with me, and I kept plowing through. So what I did, moving on to this one, was a major improvement in terms of battery life. And of course, this is compact and yet extremely versatile. I to be honest with you, when I bought it, after just Googling the things and YouTube and stuff like that, I was like, man, this is tiny. Like, it's really tiny compared to the FX9, for example, or the Venice. And I just mentioned the Venice because we just came, at that point, I just came from a BTS shoot with Adorama, and they were using the Venice, so I kind of had that camera in mind. Now, let's go from my my FX6 setup. So I bought it. This is the way it is. I'm going to put it right here. I have is that a good position? Yeah, right here. So what I have is, I have the base camera. I started with the V-mount batteries. Oh, all right. Started with V-mount batteries, but then because I really want to keep it lightweight, and I tried a couple of days with the BP batteries, and they did a great job for me right from the get-go. So I was like, why do I need to have heavy weights and on the back of the camera. Let's just keep the BP batteries as long as they last. And so I never went back to V-mount, at least for this project. I have a Tilta camera cage on top of it. It allows me to attach things. I have an Atomos Ninja V Plus that I bought because when I bought it, I was like, it's one of those things that you purchase. Let me give you an example. I bought an electric guitar 3 months after my first kid was born, thinking I'm gonna use it all the time. And then I realized after a weekend that I played it, you have a kid, you're never gonna use it. So my guitar is right there. And that's the same thing for the Ninja V Plus that I bought. I was like, oh, I'm gonna shoot ProRes with inside, never used it. This does an incredible ProRes internally. Well, the 4.2 internal is amazing, so why do I need to go and fill up these hard drives that I paid for and I love them? I just keep it for external monitor. I know it's too much. It's a great recorder, but I tried it once. I was like, it's amazing, but you know what? I love it to go internally. 2470 f2.0 G Master, it's the first one. I've had it since the dawn of time. I love this lens so much. I haven't tried the new one yet, but I hear is amazing as well. But this is my go-to lens for everything that doesn't require me to overthink things or something specific that I may go over it later. I had a Rode NTG2 microphone that I don't have it with me, but it's just a shotgun Rode microphone that I keep it for anything audio. The internal audio that the FX6 records is already amazing. So when you don't have, or if you don't have that, this is already good audio. Just always keep the handle on. I don't know if you know this, but you need to keep the handle on because without this, there's no audio inside the body of the FX6. That's the only downside. So if you want to use it on gimbal and you say, yeah, you're not take the handle off, just be aware of the fact that you don't have any audio. So that's the thing. And then Sennheiser EW and the Sony CF Express Type A for recording, which I, again, love them. Like, I set it, I never had a problem with them. Now that I set it, probably in the next 5 shoots that I have, I'm probably gonna be destroying and breaking down on me, but let's, good thing I have this wood over here. So, other gear that I have that it's not on the table right now, it's the A7S III. Again, love that camera. It became my B camera, and what happened is became the camera that I normally put on gimbals. So because I know that I have this camera that I can use anything but gimbal due to audio things, to the handle and the audio, I kept the A7S III for just audio. Is there anything in the chat that I need to address? Love it, see for improvement. Oh, okay, that's nothing with me. Cool. There's some drone shots in the movie that I did with the Mavic Air, and I have 2 other lenses, the 72-200 G Master and the 16-35, which I normally keep on the gimbal. So I normally keep a very wide lens on the gimbal just to have it, and I love the way the gimbal looks on a 16 millimeter. That's really amazing for me, and I use it most of my corporate work. When I use gimbal, I use the 16-20, 16-35, but for the documentary, basically that lens lived on that camera. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast? I'm probably going too fast. I talk too fast, but I'm Italian, so that's what we do. We talk fast, we move our hands, and sometimes English fails us. So that's the life. That's my life. All right, so my settings. I want to start with the big thing. I didn't use S-Log3, which is a major thing. People are not, people on YouTube rave about the capacity of the S-Log3, and I'm sure it's amazing, and I'm sure it was lovely, but you need to think of the fact that S-Log3 for me would have meant an incredible amount of work in post-production. I'm going to go over what post-production was, but how much weight can the gimbal take? Well, my gimbal, this one doesn't live on the gimbal, for sure. I normally put the A7S III on my gimbal. When I do the gimbal with this, I normally stripped it down to just the FX6, the lens, which is, again, normally either the 2470 or the 16-35, and no microphone, no Ninja, and no handle over here. This is a bayonet handle, so you take this off, and basically it's much simpler. Again, and I put, just for weight, I put a smaller battery, just for that, so it takes some of the weight away. But yeah, this big setup doesn't live on the gimbal. I do this with handheld, and I think because of the way there was such a big setup, I normally what happens is that that's why I struggled at first with weight, because it's such a big setup, and it was a major move from the A7S III, which is a smaller camera, to this one with everything attached to it. So that's probably why I struggled a little bit. I hope I answered that question, Big Easy. I wish I had some details in weight size, but I probably can type it down once I get home and weight the camera and the settings. Now, going to the S-Log 3, of course, incredible dynamic range. Sony's S-Log 3 is amazing. I've used it multiple times for corporate works and commercial works, anything that it's extremely polished. But I knew from the get-go that this documentary was not going to be an extremely polished kind of scenario. I was going to be doing a lot of filming, and a lot of filming for the story versus filming for the visuals. And so I wanted to have... I gave up some flexibility in post-production, which is an amazing thing that you get when you... what gimbal I was using with the FX3? I was using the Ronin, the DJI RS2 Pro. When it comes to, again, color grading, it's incredible what you get with the S-Log 3, but I knew I didn't have the time to do all the color grading. And then flat and desaturated, of course, the S-Log 3 gives you that flat look, which might be tricky, and I get there in a minute. The S-Cinetone, you get a natural and filmic look. Basically, it's a burnt-in profile on the file, and what it is that you get what, according to Sony, it's a Venice-like look directly into the camera, which is pretty amazing. You have limited dynamic range, so you don't have those 13 or 15 stop of dynamic range, but at the same time, you get a lot of already there beautiful images. So when you don't have to worry too much about grading. Ease of use, and of course the color saturation, it's more vibrant and saturated color compared to S-Log 3, which is very flat. The reason why I chose not to use S-Log 3 is quantity. I knew I was gonna have a lot of footage, and I knew I didn't have a color grading person that helped me at the end. Spoiler alert, I find out I had a color grading person at the end. So I could have shot S-Log 3 because a good friend of mine helped me out at the end, and he said, I love the movie, I want to help you, and I want to give him a shout out. Thank you, Fabio. But at the end, the film is about 2 hours long, so it's a very long movie. According to my editor, who I want to give a shout out to, it has over 2,000 cuts, so it's very fast paced. As you've seen in the trailer, it's very fast paced. And I have 300 hours of footage. So it's a ton of footage because it's observational. I sometimes showed up at the classrooms they were building. I was filming for 2 hours. Nothing really mattered. Nothing happened, according to me. And then my editor grabbed the clip that worked tremendously well for that scene, but it was a year later, and I was like, all right. So sometimes I'm doing a sidebar here. The horror of doing observational documentaries versus, let's say, I'm going to tell the story of Napoleon. You do your interviews, you grab whatever footage you have, photos, or historical, anything, and you tell the story. Whereas you're capturing reality happening in front of you as it's happening, it was a major hurdle for me to undertake. And right off the bat, like I remember the first day that day one of production, I got out of the school and I walked and I called my wife, and then I called the editor and I was like, this is too complicated. I don't know if I'm good enough to take care of this. And then, good thing I had help along the way, not on production, but then on post-production. So any major mistakes that I made, someone fixed. And of course, quality. With S-Log 3, if you're not really great at it, you might get some mistakes that are harder to solve. And so I really wanted to do something that I really was happy with from the get-go, instead of going with something that, oh, gee, I hope it's happy, and then it's not. Gee, I hope I'm happy with the end of it, and then it's not great, and I'm like, I wasted some great footage. So how I exposed the S-Cinetone, this is how I did it. I'm not a tech guru by any means. I just tried it out. I just felt it, and this is the way it came out nicely. So I never overexpose. So whatever you do with S-Log 3, which was tend to overexpose a little bit and go a little bit brighter, I never overexpose. I always try to look for the what you see is what you get kind of look. Like I felt like it was burnt in. Contrast is higher as you get into the shadows, which is also, now that I read it, close to a good movie. Should be a good title for a movie. As you get into the shadows, the contrast gets higher, so you want to be aware of that. You're keeping more on that sense. And for skin tones, it's a profile that it's made for skin tones. I realize. So you really want to set your zebra up for those skin tones, and you want to keep the zebra. What I kept the zebra for skin tones at 65%. So I kept that as a level, because if I felt that if I went higher than that, I was really losing quickly some details on someone's face. And then for landscape, I kept it at 75%, just because at the end of the day, if I lost something in landscape, this is something that it's like 85% internal shots. So whenever we did something outside, I knew I could have fixed it and was going to be fixed. So 75% was a good safe margin for me. And things that I learned along the way, I learned to never trust the Sony exposure meter. I knew that from the A7S III. And this thing, I translated into this one. I kept the waveform on the external monitor, so another reason why I kept the Ninja with me all the time, to have a waveform, so I keep that in mind and look at that every time I film. And then even though it's a baked-in profile, there's still a lot of dynamic range. And this is something that we found out in the color grading side of the gig, because that's pretty much what happened. You know, we were grading and it was like, oh, we can actually see things that we're not supposed to be seeing because this is a baked-in profile. So that was really good, and I'm happy I found that out. Now,
what is wrong about the exposure meter on the Sony?
I think it sees the whole frame. Oh, the question is, what was wrong with the meter and the Sony? I think the problem with the meter in the Sony is that it sees the whole frame. So sometimes you see something and it sees it well lit, but then you kind of accept it as a dogma, but then you'll go in and then you play it on Premiere or whatever software you use, and you see that it's too dark or too bright, because the overall, yeah, it's well exposed, but then what you're looking at is really what you're trying to capture. So in my sense, because it's a people-based, it's all about people. The skin tones, I found out that, yeah, the scene might be well lit and the meter is good, but then the skin tone really isn't great, and so I had to fix it and do some extra work in post-production. So I don't trust that. I trust the waveform and I trust the zebra, and I found out that later in the process. So if you look at the color grading that happened, was that the second half of the movie has less hurdles in terms of skin tones to color grade because of that reason. Does that answer the question? Great. My exposure on my Atomos over in the back. Yeah, I think the Atomos gives you a great exposure. I love the fact that whatever I see in the Atomos was great. Like, what I'm saying is, you know, the reason why I went to Ninja V5 Plus is because I thought I was going to record everything inside here, but I love it to death because of the fact that I could read whatever I see here is actually what I'm getting, and it's super bright. So whenever I was filming outside, I was seeing everything, and I never missed the viewfinder, you know, which all people say, oh, you need to have a viewfinder. I never missed it because of the fact that the Atomos is so bright. So Brad McMillan, I'm with you on that. Now, going into handle when filming outdoors in the sun. Oh yeah, the Atomos, it's great. Like, I was filming pure bright, and it was like, it was on a track with no trees, Watkins Glen International, on a racetrack, and I was filming with this thing in bright sunny day, early September, and it was perfect. It was really, really perfect. So I'm really happy with it. Customizable buttons about the FX6. Now, one thing that I love about this is that I could customize a lot of the stuff. The FX3 has the same opportunities, but the FX6, to me, it's the one that gives me the most. Now, over here, and you can see it, I'm going to go all around them. So over here, I kept the S and Q because there's some times where I really wanted to do slow motion, and so by clicking on this, I could easily move to S and Q. Boom, I have my slow motion. It's right there. It's set up. I just need to adjust a little bit the exposure, but then that's it. And then if I click it again, it goes back to whatever it was before. Number two, I put the ATW, so the auto white. Again, professional universe, they don't like auto white, but you need to think of the fact that I was by myself and I had to chase people around and I didn't know what's going to happen. So whenever I was trying to find out how to do things, and I needed to get a shot done because something was happening in front of me and I needed to capture it. And I didn't know if it was well exposed. I went with the auto wide so that I knew that at least that was taken care of. I know it's not something that you hear a lot, but you know, it is what it is. 3 is peaking, so you know, you make sure that the focus is good. I check the peaking all the time, especially because when I would do interviews, my cameras are unmanned because I have to do it by myself. So I can't just stay behind the camera and check everything. So check the peaking right away and then have the tracking do the thing. On 4, I do the focus magnifier. Oh, you want to put it, wait. Focus magnifier over here. Sorry, Seth. Focus magnifier is it comes with it. Basically, you magnify the focus, not too much. It comes exactly with the camera. And then on 5, I have the direct menu, which allows you to control directly what's happening in the viewfinder. So that's pretty again, standard. It comes with. It's actually written direct menu. So I kind of felt horrible to change it because the camera is telling me what is it. So I'm like, it would be like problematic. So number 6, which is the button hidden right here. Oh wait, like right here. Whoa, right here. So we need to figure that out. All right, next time will be better. But this one, there's a button hidden over here. It's number 6. I find auto is so much better than it used to be as. Yeah, so again, but there's a stigma against auto wide balance. Like they're like, oh, you don't do that. But I'm like, depends. Like, you know, it's there for a reason. And if you have to do it because you can just stay there and fix everything, change everything while something's happening in front of you that's really important, go with auto wide. And then, you know, at least that's taken care of. Again, if you're by yourself, auto wide, especially with these cameras, it's not gonna betray you. So let me just go back to the number 6. So it's a button that is hidden right here and you push it with your middle finger. It's base ISO. Now, as you know, the FX6 has base ISO, which is like for S-Log3 is 800 and 12,800. For S-Cinetone is 320 and 5,000, I think. So it's a little lower in terms of ISO. You can switch easily between the two. That's really good for me because, you know, you follow a student that or a teacher that is walking from outside of the building to inside, you toggle and boom, you're switching to a base ISO that it's lower. You don't have to stay there and do like manual things all the time. So, and that happened a lot. Like I had a lot of times that I were walking to the school, walking from a room to room that a completely different light. So the number 6 is one of my favorite ones. Number 7, what happens is, right here, number 7 is above the handle. Number 7 is face autofocus, so you can, it tracks not tracks, but it finds the face. So basically you, or eye detection, so you can select it, and that's what happens. And then on 8, you touch operation, you toggle the touch, there's a type over there, touch operations on your monitor, which is, again, really good, especially if you're using it, because I use that a lot, the touch operations. And by the way, get a screen protector for this one, because all your fingers, you know, they ruin it. So get a screen protector and you won't regret it. It's like $8, so must have. And then on number 9, which is right here, I have the volume for my headphones. I don't want to have to go into the menu and adjust the volume for my headphones. I don't do that very often, but when I do interviews, I need to adjust the volume. I just click on this one and I'll just do it. So that's pretty much what my settings were for this. And again, this is me. I didn't go into the room the first day walking in with this setup. So it's something that I learned along the way. Like it was a need-based process for me. So what do I need? What do I need to happen fast? What do I need to happen right away? And so that's how I came with this conclusion, which, I don't know, it's solid. Let's say it's solid. Okay, we're good over here. All right, I'm gonna show you another clip from the movie, just so you have an idea that you know some of the behind the scenes of what happened, and then we can talk a little bit more. All right, so this clip is actually the moment where, right before COVID hit, and we were talking about introducing the project to the viewers.
Racing was always something that I wanted to do. I went to the races with my father from a very young age. I think this sport has a tendency, through osmosis, to make you effectively have it part of your blood.
Listen, there's science, there's technology, there's engineering, arts, and math all in race car driving, right?
Everyone has their role. Everyone has their skill set. Everyone has their transcendent talent that they can bring to the table.
What if we built a program around that and had students come up and be able to experience that?
And we were talking about this at a restaurant somewhere. I can't remember where, but it was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. How are we gonna make that happen? Pies is like, well, let me figure it out.
This name just kept popping up. Factory 5, Factory 5. Factory 5 is the best in these kit cars. So sure enough, I just started calling every day. They'd heard about the Dyson Foundation being behind me, and I went to go meet with the CEO, Dave Smith, and I pitched the whole idea to him as well.
My brother and I started Factory 5 in 1995. We wanted to build custom cars. What we found over the years was that the best way to build a car is with someone else. Everyone who builds these cars puts their heart and soul into it. It's their personal pride. And then when they're all done with this beautiful car, they call it a Factory 5. Well, they built half the car. I didn't build the car.
I had this strong calling, a feeling of if people could just understand or see what I saw, they will come. It was like build it and they will come, almost on some Field of Dreams stuff. You know what I mean? I put together a team of really interested individuals, came together and said, let's figure out the pieces that we need in order for this program to be successful.
And then we can have like our sponsors, so we have like Dyson on there, Factory 5 going down the side of it.
There was still a long way to go, but Candor had exceeded our expectations to this point. So much so that there was the interest of another school, Waverly Central High School. So we invited them to this beautiful event in March at the Danby Gallery. 411 extra periods these students put in outside of regular time because they had the opportunity to show everybody what they could do.
You can't just want it. You have to build it. And that's what's actually exciting.
I said, do you think we'll do it in time? He's like, I've never built one before, but let's try it. And I think that that's a lesson. Sometimes the task looks bigger than what it is. He kept digging away, and now we're at this stage.
And that's what's happening at Candor, and that's what I want to happen everywhere.
One, two, three.
Yes!
All right, so this gives you an idea of
racing was always something that I wanted to do.
Start it again.
I went to...
Sorry about that. So I want to talk about the interviews a little bit. So you saw a few of them. I want to talk about what it was like for me to film them. Because interviews, when you're doing everything by yourself, you want to do a multi-camera project, can be problematic. Again, all about documentary. So, for example, this shot was done in the garage of the auction house. So it's a huge garage, so I knew I had some depth of field, and the whole ceiling was covered with soft neon lights. So what I did, I turned them off everywhere except for above my talons, so that would give me a little bit of light. I couldn't control the door, so you can see some of the lights that is coming in from the side. So I had some lights from there, and basically I just put a small key light on the talon just to help him out, come out a little bit more. And this was shot with FX6 on the wider, and then the tight one is the A7S III. That's pretty much the setup for this interview. It came out great, but the A7S III was a little bit darker, so it was a bit of the matching. Both of them were nice, but the A7S III, same Cinetone look, was a little bit darker, and so we had to work to match a little bit more in color correction. Yeah, you can gauge the exposure on the AVF. Yeah, sure. That's one way to do it. Absolutely. Small key on the talon. I use a key LED light, very simple, and then that was it. Another interview that we did, for example, this is another one. During school hours, it was more complicated to find locations. So think about that. It was COVID. The school was very complicated to get in, and I really have to thank the administration to let me be there the whole time. So I but it was hard to find rooms to use, and I really want to kept it close to the building side. I didn't want to be like an empty right room, so I kept it on the fabrication. There was this fabrication class, primarily used fabrication class and the auditorium. So for the first one, which is the fabrication class, I was only able to use it for certain hours. So I had to have my setup ready, walk in, prep, do the thing, and then walk out right away. So what it was for me was that it was just being quick. So I set up the camera and everything, and I knew the white balance that I would have had in that room, because that I knew that and that I could control. Then I walked in with the camera, and I have to find every time, not to make it boring, I have to try to find different corners in the room to use. So every time I needed to find a new corner. And so I film, I set up everything. Camera A and camera B were my two cameras. Over here I have camera A, the FX6, and camera B is the A7S III. This was was graded beautifully by the color correction person, but I liked it when it came off the camera right away, so it was all right for me. And then basically, once the cameras are set up, I needed to be ready, hit record, mic the person, hit record, then sit down and ask them the question. Because we're dealing with people that are not really used to being in front of the camera, I do a lot of work with CEOs, with like people, hi there, with CEOs, with people who have media training. When you talk to a 16-year-old, you talk to a teacher who's never done camera presence in their life, you really want to have eye contact. I don't want to be the guy who looks at the camera and they talk to a dot in the wall, they talk to a sign, they talk to me while I'm not looking at them. So what I do, I trust the camera. I trust the fact that I have a tracking focus on their eyes. Camera's rolling, it's not overheating, because this camera doesn't overheat even in the brightest sunny days. Remember the Watkins Glen moment. So I trust that, and I just sit down and talk with them. We do a 20, 25, 30-minute talk. We chat about whatever the topic is. Then I'm done. It's 42 minutes, the class, so I have 25 minutes of interview, and I have 10 minutes to just wrap everything and walk out, because the other class is coming. That was a struggle, but then it was the only way for me to keep it consistent with the fact that I wanted to have a fabrication look. Because the next look, which is this one, the auditorium, you can see that the auditorium is, more controlled. I actually have a three light setup on this one. So basically there's a key light, a fill, and a backlight for this. I had certain days where I could really use freely. I could really do whatever I wanted with it. And that's where I did the longer interviews with the students and with the teachers and with the protagonists, because I could sit there and be with them more. Over here you have the A7S III on the right and the FX6 on the left. And the FX6, I noticed especially on African Americans, preserves more the skin tones. Skin tones are amazing in the FX6, absolutely. Yes, Cinetone is amazing. But when it came to skin color, African American skin color, I really preferred the FX6 versus the A7S III. And then what's that?
What lights were you using for that 3-light setup?
3-light setup, I was using the GVM, Grip Video Maker. They make a kit. I was using 2 of them, and then I was using a Nanlite tube light for a fill. So it was a soft fill I'm going to talk talent right. So on this side, there's a soft fill, and the key light is a GVM. I love those because they're battery powered. It's just, boom, you walk in. You don't have to plug anything, because again, every time I have to do something, I have to set up earlier, walk in with it, do it, and then walk out right away. And over here, I could set up a little bit more, but I really wanted to focus on the story and the talent. So, yeah.
And that's those like 1x1 light panels?
Yeah, 1x1 light panel. That's what I did. Yeah. They're not. You want to keep them not too close, because they tend to like blast. But so the auditorium is pretty big, so that's why I trusted them for that. And they're very lightweight. Remember, when you're a solo professional working around and trying to make it happen, you have to carry things by yourself. There's no PA walking with you. There's no one carrying you coffee or stuff like that. So having everything in bags that you can drag around and you can just throw in the car when you're done, it's huge. So the GVM was really great for me, because it helped me fulfill that at a cost that wasn't too crazy. They're pretty affordable, and that's pretty good. And of course, like I said, the cameras were immense. So all the interviews that you've seen, even the one, the Factory 5, the guy's looking at me, I talk with the person, I really, how many bags do you carry on your kit? So I have, let me just go back to Highbury, Henry. That's a great question. So I started with, what my current setup is, I have the Pelican carry-on size, which I think it's a 1510, and then I have the bigger Pelican case. So I have two Pelican cases. One, I put the camera, this one. One, I have a backpack with me, it's a camera backpack where I put the A7S III, so that's camera B. Lights, drone, and gimbal live in the big Pelican case. So, and then I have two tripods in a tripod case that I hang on the big Pelican case. So basically, you'll see me walking around with my backpack. I have one case over here, one case over there, and I'll just drag both of them like a dad at the airport would do. Okay, that was a great question because everyone sees me sweat, but no one really asks me how many bags do I carry. But I try to keep it packed, 3 bags, but everything inside of them. And then, like I said, unmanned cameras. That's my focus. Story, people. You want to interview, you want to focus on the question. Can you let us know, please, how you handled the rolling shutter for the handheld shot, which had a panning move from one person to the other? Any body rig was used? No body rig was used. It's a good question. I don't know why I handled it. I think it was handled by the camera, or someone handled it without me knowing. I guess the editor or something. But the way it is just, I didn't really worry too much. I knew rolling shutter was going to be an issue, and I tried to said, you know what? It has to be what it has to be. So sometimes you can't control, because you live in an uncontrolled universe where, everything's happening around you, you're filming what's happening. I wanted to do that, and so I didn't use any body rig. I just went with handheld, and if it has to be rolling shutter, I had to embrace it. And then of course, when it comes to lights, again, GVM LED lights, aperture I'm around 200D. Sometimes I use that as a key light. And a lot of times, was not lights at all. So this interview, for example, over here, which is not in the clip that you've seen, this one is pretty much just, the sky giving me the light. The challenges that I had throughout this whole ordeal, which lasted a school year of filming. It was 12 days after the school year to do pickups. So when we were just, doing here and there, just, get lines here and there. And then a year and 3 months in post-production, in the editing and color grading. So that was a long post-production. That was not my fault. Only a handful of location. That was a big challenge. I was only having a handful of location. I had to try to create rhythm when there wasn't really much, because it was a school. That was 80%. There was the racetrack, that was like 10%, and then there was like everything else, which was another 10%. So try to make it rhythm, try to make it rhythmic, try to make it go. That was part of your creativity, it gets you going. Like, how do I find a different corner to film the interview now? Is there a different room that I can use? Oh, I can't use the gym because the ceilings are so high, the noise is incredible, and it was only by myself. So again, you need to figure that out the moment you step into the school, and then think about it when you go to bed. I had a lack of true pre-production screening for the protagonist, which is really, really a good problem to have, but it was a problem. So basically, I walked to the school, first day of school, and I had to interview everyone who was in the project to figure out who could be a good protagonist, because I didn't know who was going to be in the project until I walked into the school first day of production. So I had to do 50 interviews of like 20, 25 minutes each, just to get a sense of the person. So who are you? What's your favorite, music style? Get to know you, like those kind of things. And that goes for faculty, staff, students, teachers, anyone. Then, as the project got along, so as throughout the project, someone who I loved because great story might have been horrible in the project, and so why focus on this person if their contribution to the project wasn't that great? So that was me trying to overcome another problem. So I had to pretty much, what I love about this movie is it's extremely meritocratic. So whoever is in the movie is because they worked a lot and they were great as interviewees, and their story was amazing. So I didn't make any decision. It was there. It was just, the way the story flew and everything worked. It's just the way it happened. So there was no decision based on my personal taste as to, oh, I prefer this person, I didn't prefer this person. It was just based on what worked better and how they worked more on the project. I had a massive volume of footage, a ton of footage, like drives over drives over drives, and my editor is in Italy, so I have to fly to hand them the hard drives and then try to get proxies here and there, because I trust my editor more than anyone in the world when it comes to this kind of stuff, so I didn't want to hand it to someone else. So I had to really, I was like, you need to do this, but you need to do it now. So he had to basically, you know, he had some personal stuff that, and so he, you know, he was really, really kind and helped me a lot, and I couldn't thank him enough. I had audio issues throughout, you know. When you mic the person yourself, you don't have a boom person, you don't have an audio guy that you say, you know what, you take care of it. I don't have that. So I had to mic the person, then wear the headphones while I do the interview, and then pray that this person doesn't move or that his tie doesn't create a scratch or something like that. And so, again, major audio issues, and I was like, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. Throughout, I was like, we'll be all right. As long as people hear it, we'll be fine. And then comes to the very end of it, my editor really, you know, we had a Zoom call one day, and he says, you know what, I think we need to have an audio post-producer. And I'm like, where do we find the budget for that? And he's like, you really need to have an audio post-producer. Like, he didn't answer the question, he just repeated the statement, like, and that was the answer. So I was like, all right, so you know anyone? So he found in Italy still another great audio post-producer. It did an amazing work. But all of those issues that I had would have been avoided if I had an audio person with me. Now, could I afford to have paid 115 days of audio person? No, of course, because this is a low micro-budget documentary. But at least you know that if you go into the process of doing this without an audio person, what's going to happen is that you have to struggle in post, always. I have a limited amount of hours in the day. So think about the fact that school only goes on until 2 p.m. So normal production days go on until like 5, 6, whatever, 10-hour days. I walk in 9 a.m., 8 a.m., and then at 2 p.m. is out. And all the students have things to do. And they only were working in the car for an hour and a half. So that's when I really had the crew there to work on the car. Everything else, it was just me chasing them around during their, you know, study halls, and maybe do an interview when they're having study halls and something like that. So I have limited amount of hours in the day. And of course, I had limited availability of students and faculty. You know, a lot of the times the superintendent was there to do an interview with me, and then he got a call because it was COVID. He got a call by, I don't know, the state, and he had to run away. So I had to come back another day to do the interview. So all this stuff, and I had to do everything by myself because, again, life. And lessons that I learned, you know, film in S-Log 3. I love the S-Cinetone, but then the color grading person was kind enough to do the color grading. He said, oh, this is amazing. Please don't use it ever again. So next time, he said, I'll help you, I'll be with you, but shoot it in S-Log 3. Even if it gets noisy, it's better a noisy S-Log 3 than an S-Cinetone that it's burned. I get his point. I still love the S-Cinetone. I still love it. Budget for sound on set, you know? That's something that I told you. I still, sound on set is an incredible burden that it takes away from you. And read the room. So the first day when I walked in, reading the room was really important because a lot of stuff was happening and I didn't know what to follow. And it's not like you have, you know, your peripheral vision that's catching everything. That's the question. XAVC So your peripheral vision goes everywhere, so you can feel things happening around you, but the camera only points at one thing. So reading the room was something that I learned along the way. Understanding what was about to happen, where do I need to look with the camera, not just accept whatever's happening in front of me, but just, you know, read the room and see and try to anticipate what's going to happen with the camera, which is extremely hard to do, and I only found out, I think, at day 55 out of 100, so it took a little bit of time. But that was pretty much it. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here. Yes?
Given all the footage you had to shoot, what resolution did you shoot in?
Everything was 4K. Oh, given all the footage that I have, what was the resolution? Everything was 4K. But that was a good question. I'm going to answer Highbury Henry in a second. But the problem was that when I was not around, I had the AV team from the school filming some of the stuff that was happening. It was a tremendous help for me, but they were filming with prosumer cameras, like the regular prosumer cameras that school budgets can afford. So I had a lot of footage of that I had to implement with my footage. And it's funny because when you see the movie, you feel that there's a difference, but you accept it again when you the overall edits. But I filmed 4K, they filmed 1080p. They had a DJI Osmo, which was like the usual, like very, very tiny. So it was a whole different, no one loves that, but that thing, yeah.
I carried it everywhere.
Yeah, the students had that same thing, filming around, and it was good because it's stabilized, so they don't have to worry too much about stuff. It's wide angle, so wherever they were pointing, something they were getting. When it comes to editing, we had, and I'll get to that, we had the prosumer cameras, the A7R III, which was the very first camera that I used, A7S III, FX6, GoPro, DJI Osmo, and then the drone. So it's a 7.
They're called the Pocket now.
Pocket, yeah, whatever. I think it was the Osmo, whatever. But so 7 different types of cameras that were used, and I think some of them shot with the phone with the students. So iPhone, throw some iPhone in there, but whatever works. Yeah, but my stuff, all 4K. What is your go-to equipment for sound, boom, lavalier, or both? So I have a boom. I have a boom pole. I don't remember the name of the pole, but I attached the shotgun that I have. So the Sennheiser that I have as a shotgun, I attached to that when I use the boom pole. There's a rig that I use for boom. So I have a stand, a boom pole adapter, the pole, and then the shotgun goes on top of the face of the person. That wasn't used in the movie because, again, I had to walk in and out of the room really fast, and I really didn't have the time to do all the setups, so I went with just the lav. Lavalier-wise, I started with the Rode lavaliers, which are okay. The moment I moved on the Sennheiser, I was like, this is another planet. So Sennheiser is definitely my go-to lavalier now. And whenever I can, other production, always use both. Both is the way to do it because something doesn't work on one, you have the other one. But if if you're by yourself, you're running against the clock, keep the lavalier. Other questions? We're good?
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.